Hey everybody, Dave here from Dave Tries to Fix Stuff, the channel dedicated to the repair, restoration, and resurrection of broken stuff. And in this episode, I'm going to show you how I put in a speaker jack here for an external speaker on a combo amp. I'm going to do it in such a way that it should make it to where it's not going to screw anything up. So, you want to see how I do it? Stick around and I'll show you. So I have this Behringer amplifier here, which I actually like quite a bit. This is a smaller version of the, what was it? The GMX212, I think is what it was, if I'm not mistaken, which I featured in an earlier video. This is basically just one channel of that amplifier. The other amplifier was basically two versions, two channels of the exact same amplifier with a lot more wattage, and it also had built-in effects. But when it comes to just doing a simple little practice session or something like this, this thing actually sounds really good. It's got some really nice tones in it. So the only thing is that although it does sound really great and there's nothing really wrong with this speaker, I was kind of interested to see what it would sound like if I were to hook this thing up to maybe a 112 or even a 212 or even a 412 and see what happens. Because this is only a little 8-inch speaker right in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to find a spot in here, probably underneath, right down here, where I can drill a hole in there and put a speaker jack in there. But I want to wire it in such a way so that when I plug a speaker in, it will take the signal away from this speaker. And the reason I want to do it that way is because I'm not sure how the op amp, or the amplifier that's actually in this thing, the power amplifier chip that's in this, actually works, what kind of impedance it requires. And when I'm seeing that this has a 4 ohm speaker, which I imagine is what's supposed to go into this thing, what I'm going to need is to have 4 ohms as the impedance coming out of this thing, or a minimum of 4 ohms, I should say. You can go with a higher impedance against it, but it basically quiets the amp down. Usually the higher the impedance, the lower the output on these things. If it's meant to be a 4 ohm, then if you put an 8 ohm speaker in there, it's going to make it a quieter amplifier. But the thing is that if you do it the way I'm going to show you how to do it, this should actually also work for if you have, say, a small tube combo or something like that. Say you have a little champ head, or not a champ head, but a champ combo or something like that, where it's actually a tube combo where the impedance is a lot more important as far as the type of impedance that you have going to the output transformer. This will make it so that you're not putting something in parallel or something in series that you're not supposed to. Essentially, as long as you have the speaker that you're hooking it up to matches the impedance of the speaker on this thing, when you plug it in, it should take it away and should take the signal and divert it to the new speaker and not have the signal continue to go to this and putting something in parallel and dropping the impedance, which is bad for the output transformer. And also I'm going to put in a little protection resistor on there, so that if you do have something plugged in here and say it gets unplugged at the other end, what that essentially does is creates a zero impedance against the output. And that means that there's no impedance on the other end, because usually when you have an output transformer, it will reflect the impedance of whatever the speaker is onto the tubes. And then if you don't have any impedance there, that means there's no impedance on the tubes. It'll end up blowing out your tube, could blow out your rectifier tube, could blow out your diodes if you have diodes. There's a lot of bad things that can happen with that. So putting in a little resistor in there that's a fairly low ohms will do really well as far as making it so if you have something plugged in there, it'll protect against having that happen. So let's go ahead and get this thing out of here, though. I'll show you a little bit more what I'm talking about, and hopefully everything will make a little bit better sense. Now, it looks to me like somebody's already cut this thing at some point, so I will probably end up just replacing these all together to have solid solid speaker wires. that don't have cuts in them, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut these now. Come on, baby. Sometimes I want to fight you coming out of here. So yeah, now looking at this thing, you can see there's a lot of real estate in here, so it won't be a problem to have. You know, sometimes people will put them on the back, but since you've got all the writing on the back, it just makes more sense to put a little thing right under here. It'll be easier to do that. And you can see where this thing's coming from over here. So we can, we're gonna have to pick off the hot glue off of this thing, desolder from this, and figure it out at that point. Let me put this off to the side though. Now, when you take this thing off, one thing you want to be careful of is right here on these switches, you've got these little felt, these little felt, I don't know what you'd call them. They're just like little things that kind of hide what's back there. It's an aesthetic thing, but it also might have something to do with actually insulating these from the chassis. So you want to make sure you're careful with those, that you don't lose them, that they don't break. Because I've actually had them break before, and it's kind of a pain in the butt to get them going again. So as far as where I want to put this jack, I'm thinking towards the back is better because it's, you know, it's easier to get to. So I'm thinking it's kind of, you know, right about in here. I guess it kind of just, however you personally would want to do it. But to me, it seems it makes most sense logically to put it kind of towards the back there. So I think that's where I'm gonna do it. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this guy. So what you need for this, and this is kind of where the key comes in, is you need a jack that has one of these shunts on it, where you've got, what you're going to have is you've got one of these tabs is actually the sleeve. One of these tabs right here goes to the tip on this thing, and then this guy right here is actually this shunt. When there's nothing plugged in here, these two tabs right here are actually, it's the same thing because they're connected up here at this spot. And then when you plug it in, one of them goes away and the other one, and just the tip will work. So so what we'll want to do is the sleeve is obviously going to be the ground. So the ground for this will hook into this guy and then go to the other thing, go to the other speaker, or the internal speaker. And then the tip itself will just be wired in like that, and then we will go from the shunt right here down to the other speaker. So then when something plugs in, that shunt, this is pulled away from the shunt right there, like that, and then the signal that was going to here, that will be going to the speaker, that signal is now broken, so the speaker internally will be cut off, and then the signal will actually go to the tip to whatever you have plugged in. Across the tip to the ground, I'm going to put in like somewhere in the neighborhood of say 200 or 300 ohms and like a big high wattage resistor. And by high wattage, no more than, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 watts is all that would really be needed. And what that does, what I was talking about earlier, what that does is that protects your output, because even if you have something plugged in here and you don't have a speaker plugged in at the other end of the cable, that means there would be no, if you didn't have a resistor across there, you wouldn't have a load against your output. So if you have a, 200 ohm, let's say a 200 ohm 2 or 3 watt resistor, now you've got an impedance and a resistance against the load. So it makes it makes the amp think that you have a speaker hooked up, even though it's a 200 ohm speaker. It still is some sort of resistance, some sort of impedance against that, and that keeps it from burning up. And at 200 ohms, that's not going to do much to affect the overall impedance of either speaker that you have going in there. So that's a little trick that you can use to help maintain your OT. That's why this little modification will work both on a solid state amp like this and on a tube amp. So I don't have any black wire, so for the black I'm going to substitute green, which is fine. Red will stay red and this will be green now. Okay, so now we can kind of twist these up a little bit. Okay, so again, you can see that this tab right here is the sleeve, this tab is the tip, and this tab right here is the shunt. So the greens need to go right here. Okay. And then this guy, put him around another loop. This guy is going to go right here. Oops. And we're going to do that. You always want to remember, because I could theoretically just stick it up through there and fill it all with solder, but you always want to make sure that you have a good mechanical connection. Like, oh, just want to be careful not to melt that thing right there. So you want to actually bend the wire over so that it is touching the metal itself, to where if the solder weren't there, it would still have a good connection to it. That's important. Okay. So we have that. Oops. We have that. And we want to, now I've got this piece here, which will go, I think I'm going to put it from the bottom in here. Oops. I can only imagine that, seeing how the stand for my camera is attached to the table. Every time I knock the table, I'm wondering if it's just kind of bleeding over into the camera like a big bang or something. If it is, I apologize. Okay, so there's that. And then I've got this one, which is probably a 3 watt, 2 or 3 watt, and this is a 220 as well. So I think I'll probably put this one, well, will I be able to get that to fit? Yeah, I will. Okay. Do this. Now, so one thing I'll do is I'll actually kind of bend that down a little bit, because that will give me a little more room to kind of push that over. And now we've got everything in place that way. Actually, I'll have to put those down here first, won't I? This thing, let's see if I can get this back in here. Probably because it needs to go that way. There it goes. Okay. So now we got that back in there. Got that just like that. We got that just like that. Got that back on there. All right. Okay, so looks to me like it's going to be working now. Should be working now. I'll go ahead and plug this thing in. And then let me grab a guitar. Got a new gold Fender here. Not new, but it's a guitar I put back together. So let's see what we get here. Okay, so that speaker works. Now, here's the big kicker. Let me get this guy. This is the plug from my my test speaker over here. Let's plug that in and see if it... just switched over to my other speaker. Excellent. Cool, so this thing works. Everything I wanted to do to it, I got accomplished. So now the internal speaker will work when there's nothing plugged into the back, but as soon as you plug something in, this speaker will go silent and your other speaker will actually be the one you're using, your external speaker. So very cool. Another thumbs up success. Thanks for watching the show. Make sure you click subscribe if you like what you saw. Thumbs up. Click the little bell icon so you can get notifications of when I have new ones posted. And very cool. I guess we will see you next time when Dave tries to fix stuff. Thanks for watching.